They feared him more than Tyson. Introducing Tommy Morrison.
Tommy Morrison.
One of the most intimidating boxers of the 1990s. Known as the Great White Hope of boxing, Morrison decimated every opponent he faced. With 48 victories, 42 of them by knockout. He seemed unstoppable. However, his promising career ended abruptly, leaving behind a shadow of mystery and tragedy.
Ex-heavyweight champion Tommy Morrison dies at age of 44.
In this episode, we delve into the dark history of Tommy Morrison, the boxer who was destined for greatness, but ended his days in suffering and poverty. Tommy Morrison was born in 1969 in Arkansas, USA. Even from a young age, Tommy stood out among his peers. He was exceptionally tall and possessed incredible physical strength. Morrison found his calling early on, boxing. By the age of 13, he was already fighting on par with 20-year-old boxers, often knocking them out. Despite being younger than the legal age for boxing, Tommy's extraordinary abilities allowed him to forge documents just to compete. And to be honest, he often defeated opponents twice his age. Although he was just a teenager, he had already become a local celebrity in Delaware County. Boxing ran in Tommy's blood. His father, Tim, as well as his grandfather and great-grandfather, were all boxers. The Morrison name was well known in the area for nearly a century. Famous for their charming looks and muscular physiques, they competed in almost every tough boxing match across the southern United States. Young Tommy was no exception. "All I do is box. I go to sleep thinking about it, and I wake up thinking about it," Tommy once said. The mid to late 1980s can be considered the golden era of boxing. Mike Tyson was the most feared man on the planet. High-caliber competitors like Lennox Lewis and Evander Holyfield were emerging. While Tyson dominated the professional ring, a young white boxer with a trendy haircut was doing the same outside of it. From 1985 to 1988, Tommy racked up an impressive amateur record, 290 wins and 21 losses, with 263 of those wins coming by knockout. Although many of these victories were against local fighters from Delaware, he broke into the big leagues by competing in the qualifying rounds for the 1988 Seoul Olympics. Despite losing to rising star and future opponent Ray Mercer, who later won the gold medal, Tommy had already built a massive fan base even before turning professional. Tommy made his professional debut in New York, ending the fight with a first-round knockout. It became evident that he possessed incredible punching power, especially with his left hook. Known for his ability to close the distance quickly with his fast left hand, Tommy's reputation soared. In 1990, Morrison caught the eye of Hollywood and was offered a role in the popular film Rocky V. Following the movie's release, Tommy became one of America's most popular boxers and received offers to continue his acting career. Yet, his love for boxing led him to choose the sport over Hollywood.
The end is just about upon him. And there's the hook, as Randy pointed out. Before he gets a chance to grab on. Good combination. And Holstein's down.
Fight after fight, knockout after knockout. By the age of 22, Morrison had no room for error. He defeated many of the same opponents that Mike Tyson had beaten a few years earlier. Former world champion Pinklon Thomas couldn't last a single round against him. James Quick Tillis met a similar fate just a month prior.
To the left and a right behind it, an uppercut, and down goes Tillis. Well, there it is. That's it.
Steve Zewski, Lorenzo Boyd, and David Jaco, all victims of a monumental fight between Tommy Morrison and Mike Tyson seemed inevitable. Both undefeated and knockout artists, the bout promised to be the fight of the century. Unfortunately, just before the match could take place, Buster Douglas shocked the world by defeating the seemingly invincible Mike Tyson. It remains one of the greatest upsets not only in boxing history, but in the world of sports. In 1991, Morrison stepped into the ring for a world championship fight against Ray Mercer. Despite Mercer being given little chance against the new boxing star, Tommy unleashed his full power on his opponent. However, Mercer withstood the assault and sensationally knocked out a fatigued Morrison in the 5th round, seizing the initiative.
Fights, and Morrison has in his 27th. Mercer pounding away. Morrison may be going. Morrison is gone.
This loss was hard to swallow and turned Tommy from the most promising boxer into a man with a dubious future. Critics questioned how he could compete with Lennox Lewis and Mike Tyson if he couldn't even beat Ray Mercer, who was considered the weakest champion in the division. After this disappointing defeat, many thought Morrison would retire from boxing and shift to show business. But just 4 months later, Tommy returned to the professional ring, winning 6 consecutive matches as if rebooting his career. Morrison eventually achieved his dream of becoming a world champion in 1993 by taking the title from the legendary George Foreman. After his first successful title defense, talks of a super fight with Lennox Lewis began, yet fate had other plans. At the end of 1993, Morrison failed to defend his title and was unexpectedly knocked out by the relatively unknown Michael Bent.
Michael Bent on the verge of a big moment, and he's got it. That's it. A first-round KO for Michael Bent.
Losing the title didn't break Morrison's spirit. He returned to the winning path and reclaimed the championship belt. In 1995, he faced off against the legendary Brit Lennox Lewis, but was outclassed and lost by technical knockout in the 6th round.
And there's a monumental uppercut. Morrison went to one knee. Lane calls it a knockdown, correctly so. Factor so far. Down goes Morrison again, and stoppage here. You get that sense. Down goes Morrison again, and I wonder if Mills has seen enough. There is no 3 knockdown rule in effect. That's the 4th knockdown of the fight, and that'll do it.
Around this time, rumors swirled about Morrison's vices. He was known as an extravagant alcoholic and drug user, but his biggest addiction was women, with whom the charming athlete had numerous affairs. Nonetheless, his remarkable physical prowess allowed him to continue performing at a high level. In 1996, Morrison was preparing for a fight against Arthur Weathers, intending to win and then challenge Tyson. However, neither fight materialized. The Nevada State Athletic Commission barred Morrison from boxing due to a medical condition. Initially, Morrison refused to take a blood test before the fight, citing religious beliefs. Boxing authorities threatened to cancel the bout, forcing him to comply. The match was ultimately called off at the last moment for medical reasons. It was later revealed that Morrison had tested positive for HIV. Tommy was known for his reckless behavior, both inside and outside the ring. Fans loved the big blonde fighter for his daring. He charged forward like a torpedo and often succeeded. However, his approach sometimes backfired, as in his fight with Bent. Morrison had Bent against the ropes within the first minute and went for the knockout, only to be caught by counterpunches. After 3 knockdowns in the first round, the referee stopped the fight. Bent's punches were harsh, but life punished Morrison's recklessness even more severely.
And he's got it. That's it.
Morrison's wild behavior started early. In high school, after being cut from the baseball team, Tommy attempted to burn obscene messages onto the field, only for the fire to get out of control and destroy the entire baseball field. In 1994, already a famous boxer, Tommy went to the police station to bail out a friend, but ended up getting arrested himself after starting a fight outside. These incidents were just a glimpse into the tumultuous life of the boxer. Yet, Morrison's primary passion wasn't petty mischief, but women. Moving from the small town of Jay to Kansas City in 1988, Tommy described the experience as a child entering a candy store, and he never turned down sweets. At times, Morrison maintained relationships with 10 women simultaneously. His answering machine even played female moans, with his voice explaining, "As you can guess, I'm busy right now." His coach urged him to moderate his lifestyle, cut back on drinking and drugs, and limit himself to just one girl per day. But Tommy ignored his coach's advice. Before the fight with Bent, Morrison divided a map of Tulsa, where the match was to take place, into 4 sections, planning to house a girlfriend in each area to visit during his training period. Although a notorious womanizer, Morrison was honest with his partners. Upon meeting a new girl, he would immediately confess that she wouldn't be his only one. Ami Morrison, when diagnosed with HIV, once said, "I know what safe sex is, but I've never practiced it." 3 months later, Tommy married his girlfriend, Dawn Freeman, and continued living with her as before, engaging in unprotected sex. The couple spent their days at home with marijuana, beer, and pizza. But Morrison being Morrison, Dawn wasn't his only woman. Despite having been in a relationship with Freeman for several years, he maintained another steady girlfriend, Dawn Gilbert. Tommy lived with Freeman in Jay, while he stayed with Gilbert in Tulsa. Both women knew about each other, but news of Tommy's marriage to Freeman left Gilbert distraught. To console her, Morrison married Gilbert in Tijuana, Mexico, in September 1996, a decision he later claimed to be puzzled by. He juggled both marriages for 2 years before deciding to divorce Gilbert. Initially shocked by his diagnosis, Morrison's perspective gradually shifted. He embraced the theory of scientist Peter Duesberg, who claimed that HIV does not cause AIDS. Rejecting traditional medications, Morrison believed they were more dangerous than the virus itself. "He tells me he's never felt better, yet his knees shake when he stands," recounted his uncle Troy, noting Tommy's significant weight loss. Morrison turned to alternative medicine, experimenting with hyperbaric chambers, aloe vera oil, therapeutic clay, blood cleansing, and even a $1,800 magnet purported to extract the illness from his body. His alternative treatments were paired with methamphetamine and cocaine use. "I've never been addicted to drugs," Morrison clarified. Convinced that the world would end in 2000, Morrison bought land with a cave to survive the apocalypse, using some of the $16 million he earned in the ring. However, he ended up spending New Year's Eve and many other nights of 2000 in jail. In December 1999, Tommy was imprisoned for weapon and drug possession. Disliking jail, he feigned insanity by drawing circles under his eyes with cigarette butts, yelling loudly and pretending to vomit into a cup. His antics got him transferred to a hospital ward for schizophrenics, where he nicknamed the stern German floor administrator Hitler. Morrison claimed he was frequently locked in a box as punishment, a claim the hospital denied. While Tommy was incarcerated, his wife demanded a divorce. Freed from Freeman, Gilbert returned to him, writing letters, visiting him in the hospital, and even convincing him to take AIDS medication. After his release, Tommy remarried Gilbert, and the medication significantly reduced his viral load, improving his health. However, Morrison then claimed that he never had HIV, insisting his test results were wrong. Armed with this belief, he resumed his sports career. In January 2007, Tommy fought John Stover in a mixed martial arts match on an Arizona Indian reservation, avoiding the state's sports commission jurisdiction and blood test requirements. Morrison won by knockout in the first round, despite the crowd's disapproval due to altered fight rules banning holds and kicks, putting Stover at a disadvantage. Under mysterious circumstances, Morrison acquired a boxing license in West Virginia, later facing allegations of blood sample tampering. He fought and won 2 official matches by technical knockout in February 2007 and a year later, alongside several unsanctioned fights. These sporting events coincided with changes in his personal life. Morrison divorced Gilbert in 2007. 4 years post-divorce, Tommy married again, this time to British woman Tricia Harding, whom he convinced there was no link between HIV and AIDS. In 2011, Morrison planned a fight in Montreal, but the Quebec Boxing Commission required him to undergo HIV and hepatitis testing. Tommy publicly refused. Before his unfortunate defeat in Montreal, Tommy had unsuccessfully sought permission to fight from numerous American states. To journalists, Morrison claimed he was the victim of a conspiracy, insisting that if allowed to fight, he would defeat the Klitschko brothers and reclaim his championship title. By then, however, the boxer no longer looked the part of the 1990s heartthrob he once was. Little remained but his name and reputation. His hands were marked with spots, indicative of Kaposi's sarcoma, a condition common among those with HIV. Morrison, however, attributed these marks to mosquito bites. Morrison's dreams of major fights never materialized. His health deteriorated, and his appearance worsened. He spent the last year of his life bedridden, with his wife Tricia by his side. Perhaps a life resembling a Greek tragedy was fitting for Morrison, who looked like a Greek warrior. But in his case, his Achilles heel was somewhere below his waist, they mused. On September 1st, 2013, Tommy Morrison passed away at the age of 44 following a prolonged illness. The cause of death was heart failure. It remains uncertain whether the famous boxer had AIDS, the terminal stage of HIV infection. Numerous tests yielded varying results, but the fact remains: Morrison died after a long battle with illness. Tommy Morrison's talent was undeniable. However, boxing is not just about 36 minutes in the ring. It is a lifestyle that demands total commitment for positive outcomes. It requires one to invest time and energy. Tommy, however, wasn't willing to give. He only wanted to take everything life had to offer. Resisting the temptations of success can be as challenging as reaching the top. Such was Tommy Morrison, known to many as the Duke.